What is going to keep you going through times of suffering and times of persecution? Whether that's difficult times in your own life, perhaps a period of struggling with your health, physical health, mental health, experiencing suffering because you're experiencing opposition in the workplace, times of significant bereavement. We're coming to the through the first anniversary of losing both my mum and my father-in-law in the space of a few weeks. And so there are lots of memories at the moment as we begin to re-experience that. What keeps you going through a time of struggle when a church goes through a tough period of time, external opposition to your plans, the experience of being in a hard area that's resistant to the gospel, even division and opposition within the church. What keeps us going through periods of greater struggle and suffering. A crisis like the COVID pandemic or the impact around the world from the war in Ukraine, or living as a believer directly in Ukraine or in Israel or Gaza at the moment. Well, I want to suggest a few things that keep us going from Revelation 14. So grab a Bible, pause the talk, as usual, read through the passage, Revelation 14. First of all, we can look forward in hope. So what will keep us going? Well, we look forward in hope. We look forward in hope because we know that God's people will be kept safe. Have a look at verse 1 to 5 with me. The 144,000 make a reappearance here. If those that were worshipping the beasts were marked with the number that represented the beast sealing their forehead, saying that they were under his authority, marked out, belonging to him, his possession, well, then the 144,000 have the name of the Lamb of Jesus and the name of his Father, of God the Father, on their foreheads. They've got their own seal, marking them out as different, as separate, as protected. And I think here there's the point. This is not meant to be that we're going to go around looking for people with tattoos on their foreheads. Not to get into debates about barcodes and those kinds of things. No, the point is that to be sealed is to be marked out as belonging to and under the protection of, just like a lamb would be branded to show that they belong to a particular shepherd, a particular farmer. What will seal us and mark us out? Well, actually, it's the presence of the Holy Spirit in our lives, shaping and influencing how we live. And so the 144,000 representing a whole number, a perfect number of God's people, are marked out and separate. And if they're sealed, they're kept safe. There's a choir, a sound from heaven, verse 2 and 3, singing a wonderful new song. And the 144,000 are able to learn it because they have been redeemed, they've been rescued, kept safe, brought through. Kept safe, not just physically, but in terms of holiness, pure as virgins. So if virginity represents purity, well, they're pure, they've not been contaminated, not been stained by sin. They're redeemed, so they are purchased. God has bought them back. Remember that message that the conquering, the victory, the salvation comes through Jesus' blood, his poured out blood, his atonement on the cross. and they are purchased as an offering so that they can bring their offering as praise, as a gift to God. That image, we think of how God gives us his Son, but John 6 will tell us that Jesus says that God the Father has given us to him as a gift, as an offering, as a precious thing. But here we see that we are also given back to the Father as his special possession, as an offering to God and to the Lamb. Blameless and righteous because of Christ's imputed righteousness given to us. Verse 5. We can look forward in hope because we know that God's people will be kept safe. Here is this image of a people redeemed, brought safely out of the earth and given as this offering to God. We can look forward in hope because sin has been vanquished and all evil will be judged. Look at verse 6 to verse 20. So verse 6 through to verse 13, John again sees a vision of angels, three angels here. So there is an angel flying through the sky, and he is carrying the gospel, the eternal good news. He's bringing good news to proclaim to the world. What is this good news? Well, verse 7, fear God, he shouted. Give glory to him, for the time has come when he will sit as judge. Worship him who made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and all the springs of water. The good news is that God is the righteous judge, that he has final and true authority, that the rule and reign of the beasts and the dragon is temporary, that this is God's earth, and that he is the one who is able to judge righteously. Then another angel, the second angel, follows him through the sky. Here is his good news. Babylon is fallen, that great city is fallen, because she made all the nations of the world drink the wine of her passionate immorality. Babylon was the city that represented opposition to God and his people. Babylon, the city that rises out of the fall of Babel in Genesis 11. Babel, where the people of the earth had come together in defiance against God and tried to build a tower to make a name for themselves, instead of seeking to exalt God's name, and where God had scattered them. But later it becomes the center of civilization, this great empire that, of course, is used to conquer and judge Israel and Judah, but consistently represents idolatry and sin. That if Jerusalem is God's city, the place of God's presence, then Babylon is the place of God's absence, a place where people reject God and seek to rival him. And symbolically at this time, as John writes, Rome is thought of as Babylon because of this empire's opposition to God and his people. There seem to be times when even Jerusalem and Judea itself, in its opposition to God, becomes like Babylon. And Babylon then, throughout history, can be seen to represent this world, its powers, its governments, and its religions, as they stand in opposition to Christ. Well, if in the previous chapters we saw Satan's fall, here we see Babylon's fall as well, this proud empire. And all proud empires, all of the beasts, all of the powers, all of the authorities of this world cannot stand forever. They will fall, just as ancient Babylon fell, just as Rome fell. Then a third angel followed. remember in the previous chapter, remember that in chapter 13 we saw that the beast and his statue, the statue was given a voice, and the statue said that if you don't worship the beast, you don't worship me, then you will die. Well, this angel says, well, actually, no. True judgment, true death, true experience of God's wrath comes if you worship the beast and his image. And so there's this description of judgment described like being tormented with fire and burning sulfur in the presence of the holy angels. In other words, the judgment of hell, eternal judgment, is to come. Verse 11. Verse 12, a reminder that because all of this is happening, because there is this battle going on, because there is judgment coming, so God's holy people will keep enduring persecution. How are they to do it? Patiently obeying his commands and maintaining their faith in Jesus. A reminder again, patience and faithfulness. And I heard a voice, verse 13, from heaven saying, write this down. Blessed are those who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, they are blessed. Indeed, for they will rest from their hard work, for their good deeds follow them. So we can have hope, knowing that sin and evil face their destruction. Babylon falls. And we can face suffering with hope, knowing that death doesn't have the last word, that there is no fear in death for us because Christ will call us home to be with him, that even death itself is just a step to that great joy of being at home with the Lord. We can have hope because we are part of a great harvest that God is bringing in, that the gospel is having its effect. And even in the midst of persecution, that is what is happening, that God is bringing hungry and thirsty people to himself, bringing them to hear the good news from us as we witness with our lives and our words, even through troubled times. So look at verse 14 to 20. Then I saw a white cloud, and seated on the cloud was someone like the Son of Man. He had a gold crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. Then another angel came from the temple and shouted to the one sitting on the cloud, swing the sickle, for the time of harvest has come, the crop on earth is ripe. So the one sitting on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the whole earth was harvested. And so there's this description of harvest brought in, a harvest both of judgment and salvation. This great harvest of the end. We look forward with hope, knowing, first of all, verse 1 to 5, that knowing verse 1 to 5, we look forward in hope because we know that God's people will be kept safe. We look forward, verse 6 to 17, because sin has been vanquished and all evil will be judged. And we look forward in hope because we see this great harvest, a harvest that both means judgment for sin, glory and blessing for God's people. Thanks for listening in.